Welcome back to the True Geordie podcast. Today I am joined by a man who Mike Tyson described as the toughest white man on the planet. It's Big Joe Egan. Thanks for coming, bro.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Brian. Thank you for having me on your show.
And do me research about you. I seen Tyson speak of you very highly. You obviously also fought Lennox Lewis. You're an Irish boxing champion. And now you're looking to fight Big John Fury. How did that come about, mate?
Well, John's challenged any 58-year-old on the planet that's brave enough, game enough to get into the ring with him. And I've been listening to this and I thought, well, I'm brave enough, I'm game enough, and I've responded to his challenge.
We've seen him recently sort of like having a go at Carl Frampton after Carl Frampton said, I think that Jake Paul might beat Tommy Fury, for example, and other moments he's had around YouTubers. What do you make of the way John's sort of, promoting himself now?
Carl Frampton voiced his opinion, and for John to stand over him, trying to intimidate him, trying to bully him, a two-time champion of the world, a man less than half his size, was very, very disrespectful. And I think that in boxing there's a great camaraderie. And boxing teaches you first and foremost self-respect and respect for others. John Fury showed Carl Frampton no respect that night, and it was wrong. It was very disrespectful. It's disrespectful to any person to conduct yourself like that, but especially to a two-time champion of the world who knows he's boxing.
I mean, he was right at the end of the day. It was a close fight. And Jake Paul did put Tommy Fury down at one point. So it wasn't that far off. Do you know what I mean? To be fair to the bloke. And I think a lot of people will be interested to see how John responds to you, because it's one thing doing that to a much smaller man. You, on the other hand, it's a whole nother ball game, right? Because you're cut from a similar cloth. You and John are fighting men, and you're big men, and you are in your late 50s. How do you think the body is held up, and do you feel like you're ready to go if this fight gets made?
I've looked after myself to a certain degree, and I believe that my chin is better than John Fury's. My chin has been hit by Mike Tyson, by Lennox Lewis, and by Bruce Seldon, 3 heavyweight champions of the world, and they didn't put me down. John was hit by Henry Akin one day, and he was put to sleep. So one world champion hit him, one heavyweight world champion. So I think my chin is still rock solid, even at 58. It will still be as rock solid as what it was at 28. Whether my hand speed will be as good as when I was 28, whether my footwork will be as good as when I was 28, but I know my chin will be still as good.
The good news is, I've spoken to Mams Taylor, the owner and obviously promoter of Misfits Boxing, and he has said, without doubt, he's going to make an offer to you and Big John Fury. So we will have the promotion, the venue, the money on the table. There is no reason why, if Big John Fury thinks he is the guy, the best guy in the world at 58, 59 years old, whatever it is, that he doesn't make this fight happen if he wants to prove it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's all going to be there for you.
I was in the company of Mams the other night at KSI at the Misfits boxing tournament in Leeds. It was incredible. There were some great fights. There was a fantastic atmosphere. And the hospitality that I was shown and the friendship that I was given on the night, I would love to work with them people. I think they're doing a wonderful job for boxing. I've been asked many, many times, what do I think of the YouTube boxing? And I say it's exposure for boxing, because these YouTubers are in the hundreds of millions, and they might not necessarily watch boxing on an everyday occasion. But if they look at it on the YouTube and they suddenly think, I like that sport, 100 million fans, and you get 1% of that 100 million fans, that's 1 million new fans that boxing has gained. I love boxing. I live for boxing. I'm an ex-boxer. I'm now a fan. I think the sport is blossoming with the YouTubers.
I'm glad you think so, mate, because like you, I just want to see young kids getting interested in boxing, learning how to defend themselves. It gets you so much more self-respect, and people like yourself who you were bullied when you were a kid, and you know that's what gets you to learn the ropes and learn how to defend yourself and feel better about yourself.
I only ever had the one tooth knocked down in boxing. I got 2 teeth knocked out by the bullies when I was 7 or 8 years of age in Manchester when I made my Holy Communion. The 2 bully boys were 15 or 16. They tried to take my Holy Communion medal, and I held on to my medal on my waistcoat and exposed my front teeth, and they knocked out my 2 front teeth. I got bullied as a child when I came to the UK to visit my dad, who was working on the building sites over here. Like a lot of Irish, we came to the UK to work, and we came to visit my dad who was working here. And I got bullied because I had the Irish accent. So I picked up the English accent. And when I went home to Dublin, I got bullied in Dublin because I had the English accent. I got battered by the bullies. I've got 4 younger sisters and 2 younger brothers. I'm the eldest of 7. So when the bullies would finish beating on me, rather than them hit them, I would jump back in and say, don't hit them, hit me more. Even now, talking about it, it was a hard time growing up. The boxing ring was actually quite safe for me, Brian. There was only one man hitting me. Even if it was Mike Tyson or Lennox Lewis, there was only one man. Had a referee, you had a break in between rounds, you had medical care at ringside if you got severely hurt. I never had that luxury of getting battered by the bullies.
And you know, John, specifically, you obviously were around at the same time as John. What did you make of John as a fighter back then?
John, like all fighters, is a tough person. You've got to be tough. You know, you play soccer, you play basketball, you play golf, you play football. You don't play boxing. It's a contact sport. You don't play it. It's not a game. John was a fighter that was born with courage and toughness. He would have had hard times as a pro, the same as I had hard times as a pro. We wouldn't have had the luxury of 12 and 10 and 14-week training camps to prepare. John would have worked on a building site all day and then gone to fight on the night. I worked 3 jobs as a pro. I worked the door in a pub, I worked the door in a nightclub, and I worked in Dublin Airport for Delta Airlines. And I used to sleep for a couple of hours in an armchair. My dad would wake me up. I was so tired. Am I going to the gym? Am I going to work? What job am I doing? And I never really had the proper preparation as a pro, the same as what John would have suffered in the same way, not having the proper preparation. And there's an old saying, fail to prepare, be prepared to fail. So we never fulfilled any true potential that we would have had. If this fight's made and me and John get a 12 or a 14-week training camp, whatever's left in our tank, we will bring out the best of what's left. And I know 2 proud men will give a good fight. We'll give a good account of ourselves. You know, he's not going to bow down to me. I'm not going to bow down to him. The best man will win on the night. I'm hoping it's me. I believe it can be me. Well, let's find out. Let's get the fight made.
I think it'll be electric, mate. You're both good talkers. You're both very entertaining people. And also, you know, on Misfits recently, we recently had one of the Gladiator lads, Rhino.
I fought Carlton Headley as the Gladiator Raider.
Yeah.
I fought Carlton.
Yeah.
You know, I loved the Gladiator.
Yeah. Well, seeing one of the, like, I'll be honest, the 2 guys who fought, not this Misfits con, but the one before, I think late 40s, early 50s, and they put on a great fight. It was one of the most entertaining fights of the night, let alone 2 big men like yourself who can still pack a punch because the power's the last thing to go. And John, obviously, you know, he's got loads of kids who are boxers. He's literally bred a load of boxers, yeah. So he knows what he's doing in that ring. In terms of skills, you've watched John fight. Where do you rank your skills versus John's?
I wasn't very skillful. I don't think John was very skillful either. We were just tough men. What we lacked in skill, we showed in heart and courage. I do believe it will be a good fight. The thing is, right, none of us can beat Father Time. Father Time catches up on us all. To have a reason to train, we can help slow Father Time down. This is a good reason for me to train.
Yeah.
And it's a good reason for John to train, because sometimes when you're punching a bag or you're on a cross trainer or you're running on the roads, after all the years of doing it, it does get a bit monotonous, and you need that challenge.
It's
and
like one of the last Rocky movies, you know, when he came back.
Well, Rocky is actually based on a true story, as you know, with the Chuck Wepner, the Bayonne Bleeder, and there was a lot of. I had dinner with Sylvester Stallone, which was incredible.
Oh, wow.
Sit talking to the man, because he's a massive boxing fan, and there's so many truths in them films, because he would have done his history, he would have done his studying, he would have done his due diligence on boxers and what they have to endure and what they have to go through. And sometimes when they make the comeback for the wrong reason. They make the comeback because they need the money. And you see men that were champions of the world, you know, having fortunes at their disposal, and then suddenly end up penniless and having to make a comeback because they need the money. Have to is a horrible master. And when I'd done it when I made my first comeback. This isn't my first comeback. I made my first comeback when I came out of prison and I was broke and I hadn't boxed in 12 years. And I didn't know what to do. I was Joe the convict and I'd made my dad ashamed.
Sorry, mate.
The only time I ever saw my daddy cry was when his dad died. And when I got sent to prison, I watched my dad cry. I felt sick and ashamed. So when I came out of prison, I made a comeback. Because who...
Take your time, bro. It's all good.
All we want to do in life is make our parents proud. So when I came out of prison, I made a comeback after 12 years, and it said it in the boxing news. George Foreman makes the comeback after 10 years. Big Joe Egan makes the comeback after 12 years. To get mentioned in the same paragraph as George Foreman, one of the greatest heavyweight champions of the world, was incredible. But I was broke and I needed the money. And I didn't want to get into trouble again. I didn't want to shame myself again in front of my dad. So I done what all I know how to do is fight. And I won in the 5th round. And it was an incredible experience. The fear I went through on the night, sitting in the dressing room, was I'd forgotten what it was.
12 years is a long time.
Long time out of the ring. And I won in the 5th round, and it was an incredible experience. I got myself a lot of money, and I was hoping to have another fight. And I went training to spar for another fight with a friend of mine that I'd sparred with many times, a guy called Steve Dawson, a good light heavyweight. Head geared up, we're leaving the house. Before we went sparring, we're leaving the house. And his little boy Tristan said, "What are you doing, Big Joe?" I said, "I'm going sparring with your daddy, Tristan. What we've done many, many years, for many years." And he said, "Who's the toughest, Tristan?" And I said, "Oh, your daddy's the toughest man on the planet." Like in all boys' eyes, that dad's the toughest man on the planet.
Uh-huh.
So he goes, "Really, Joe?" I said, "Yeah, your dad's the toughest man on the planet, Tristan." Anyway, we went sparring, like I'd done many, many times with Steve before. I ducked into a punch with the headgear on, and it caught my eye, and it split my eye open. And I felt the blood running down my face. And it wasn't the best punch that Steve had ever hit me with before. It wasn't the best punch that I'd ever been hit with before. But it just caught me on the bone and ripped my eye wide open.
It's a bad place to get hit, isn't it?
I knew then it was over. I was 38 years of age and I knew it was over. I went to the hospital, I got all the stitches in my face. Went back to Tristan's house, went back to Steve's house, and Tristan was looking at my busted eye. And he said, "What happened to your eye, Big Joe?" I said, "Oh, your daddy cut me when we were sparring." He said, "You said he was the toughest man on the planet." Insult to injury. But that was 20 years ago. People are asking me about this fight with John. And I said, "Listen, I haven't cycled a bike on the streets for 20 years. But I know I could go out onto a bicycle and cycle around the streets of Birmingham or any city in the UK. I'm not going to win the Tour de France." The same as the boxing. I know my way around the boxing ring. 20 years out of the ring, same as John knows his way around the boxing ring.
Uh-huh.
And we will give a good account of ourselves.
But back then, there was a different goal, right? You wanted to make your dad proud.
Yes.
You also still, were fairly young, to make a comeback, 38 or something like that?
38.
Yeah. So.
And I needed the money, Brian.
Exactly. So what is the motivation behind this one?
I still believe I can rise to this challenge of John Fury, throwing the gauntlet down to any man brave enough to step into the ring with him.
Is that a word that motivates you, bravery?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like it is, because not many people want to spar Mike Tyson, especially not as long as you did.
I needed the money when I was sparring Mike as well, because when I was in America, what I was earning with Mike, I was shipping home to my family. And the money helped shape my brothers and sisters' lives. So the longer I lasted with Mike, the more money I earned. The more money I earned, the benefited my family more. I just think that I like this challenge. He's been a little bit disrespectful to a lot of these YouTubers, which I don't think is nice. These are a young fan base. These are young young adults.
Do you mean in the press conferences where he's sort of starting on them and that?
Boxing doesn't just need great fighters. It needs great ambassadors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think John is conducting himself well as an ambassador. His son is one of the greatest heavyweight champions of all time. I really do believe that. Mm-hmm. I think Tyson Fury could hold his own in any era. He's got incredible hand speed. He's got incredible movement. He's got a great chin. He's got a great heart.
He's massive as well.
He's a big powerhouse of a man.
Aye.
But his stamina levels are incredible for a heavyweight. Mm-hmm. He could... When he fought Wilder and he got put down in that last round and he got up. Now, when you get put down, you're told to take the count. And then when you get up, you're told to hold on and try and get your composure. I've held on many, many times. You know, sometimes when I was hit that hard by different opponents, I would hold on that tight. You couldn't get me off them with a crowbar. I would hold on that tight just to get my head together.
Yes.
Right? Tyson Fury done what I've never seen before.
Put it on him, didn't he?
He put it on him. And I think Wilder didn't expect that. No one expected it.
Yeah.
You know, so John, he doesn't say it in the nice way about his children. I don't think he says the nice way of saying it. That's his son. That's the heavyweight champion of the world. That's his DNA. That's his flesh and blood. And he's a credit to his dad. John isn't a credit to boxing with his conduct, isn't a credit to boxing with his attitude, isn't a credit to boxing with what he says. And it's a shame, really, because he shines a bad light on his son. But one thing I do believe, that when John was in prison and Tyson signed his contract early in his career, he signed with Mick Hennessy. Mm-hmm. Now, Tyson could have signed a contract with Sky Sports, with a manager that had Sky Sports, but instead he signed with Mick Hennessy. And I believe the reason he signed with Mick Hennessy was because Mick Hennessy had to deal with Channel 5, so his dad could watch him in prison on his TV in his prison cell. And he probably cost himself a lot of money by signing a particular deal with Mick that he could have signed with maybe a bigger promoter, so his dad could watch him. So I know that they have a great relationship. Sometimes father and son's relationships are tested. Mm-hmm. You know, true love never runs smooth.
Yeah, tell us about it.
You know, so, but at the end of the day, I know Tyson would want to do his father proud, like any son wants to do. And I believe that he has. Not only has he just done his father proud, he's done boxing proud with his achievements. Every fighter that climbs into the ring dreams about becoming a champion of the world. I wasn't good enough. Nowhere near good enough. I won Irish titles, which was a major achievement for me.
But you were good though. And
I was okay.
The reason I'm saying this though is because when I went on, do you know Paddy Doherty?
Oh yeah,
right. So obviously,
traveling man,
exactly.
Yeah,
very legendary traveling.
His family at the Furies. Paddy's an incredible guy and a good friend of mine. My mum's people were horse people.
All right.
You know, so 4 or 5 generations back, my mum's family used to lease Shire horses.
Well, he thought you were a traveller.
My mum's people were horse people.
All right.
And one of my grand uncles, Egan's Riley. My mum's a Riley. Used to lease Shire horses to Arthur Guinness when horses was the wealth.
All right.
My family used to lease Shire horses to Arthur Guinness. So one of my family members, maybe more of my family members, could boast that Arthur Guinness was a family friend. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, I don't drink alcohol. I'm an Irishman that doesn't drink alcohol. People say, what sort of an Irishman are you? You don't drink alcohol. And my dad used to say, he's a failure as an Irishman. It's expected of Paddy's to drink, but I've no interest in alcohol.
Well, Paddy Doherty talked about your fight, by the way, with John, and he said, ironically, you mentioned horses earlier, because he said, you're both thoroughbreds. You're both thoroughbred men. And everyone in the comments was saying, Big John won't want to fight him because he's a real test for any man at that age, especially. So you've got a lot of respect in this boxing community, mate. And, Paddy Doherty is, big name in his own right. And he certainly believed that it would be a great fight. So the appetite is there, without a doubt. And a lot of this is from your background, right? So let's talk about the early days, because for me, I'm a massive Mike Tyson fan, and for you to be on your way over there at such a young, how old were you when you?
17.
17, sorry. So you're on your way to America at 17, and you're going to fight this guy, Mike Tyson, or spar with him rather.
No, I wasn't going to spar, Mike. I went on the Irish team. To box in America, and I got battered. In Atlantic City, he got pounded to a pulp by a big American sergeant. He was 28.
Jesus.
I was big for I was on the doors. I left school when I was 14 years of age. I was on the doors of nightclubs when I was 15. And I left school with 2 swimming certificates. So I don't read or write so good. And I really believed that I'm going to make my fortune out of boxing. And I didn't think I'd need Pythagoras' theorem or anything like that from school, you know. So I went to America on the Irish team, gave an account of myself the best I could do, because that's all we can do is try our best. In anything that we do is to try our best. And I tried my best. My best wasn't good enough. The Marine sergeant was too big, too strong, and he battered me.
That's mental that you were in there with a 28-year-old and you were 17, though.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
But I've been fighting grown men as a young boy anyway, you know, sparring with grown men, fighting older men. And I could take a beating, like I said earlier on, being battered by the bullies, toughened me up for the beatings. And I took this beating of this Marine sergeant, and Floyd Patterson was in attendance. His wife was Irish, and he took a great interest in the Irish team. There was an Irish featherweight called Paul Fitzgerald, an incredible fight. He won. He got the opportunity to stay on, and Floyd Patterson gave me the opportunity to stay on. So whatever I did to impress the man wouldn't have been skills, but I think he admired my courage and my toughness, and he gave me the opportunity to stay on in America, and he brought me to Gleason's gym. And I sparred a couple of pro heavyweights in Gleason's gym. Art Tucker, I can't remember the other heavyweight's name, but Al Gavin and Bob Jackson were there. And they done an original deal with Cus on a gym. So
that's Cus D'Amato for those who don't know, yeah.
Cus.
The great man himself.
Incredible man.
Yeah.
An incredible man. And they gave me the chance to go to the Catskills. They said there's a young heavyweight in the Catskills called Mike Tyson, 17 years of age. And they're looking for sparring partners. I'd never heard of Mike. I'd come over from Ireland. I didn't know who this boy was. He was knocking men out left, right and centre. I didn't know this.
And now, a word from our sponsors. I'm sure you've heard of CBD before. It's fantastic, and I'm going to tell you why I've added it to my daily routine. This is a natural compound found inside the cannabis plant, but before some of you panic, it's completely legal and it isn't going to get you high. Now, some of the main reasons are it helps me with my sleeping, stress, and anxiety. And after hearing that, I'm pretty sure you can all do with a bit of CBD. I've read the comments. You lot seem stressed. Every time you want to insult me, just take one of these bad boys. It'll calm you right down. There's a reason why this box is basically nearly finished, because I've been having plenty of these responsibly, because, you know, you don't want to overdo it, but just to prove I actually do love these. Lovely. I'm fine. No more stress and anxiety now. So wonderful. You've also got this wonderful CBD oil. I like to take a little drop under the tongue, like so, just before bed, if I want a really good night's sleep. And you've also got these face creams, which I've seen do amazing things for people with skin conditions. It's unbelievable how good they work. Supreme CBD are without doubt the market leader in this field. You will get the best quality products you can find. And I've got an unbelievable discount for you guys with 40% off when you use my code, which is TRUE40. That's all block capitals, TRUE40 at checkout. You can click the link in the description below, get yourself there, get whatever you want, and thank me later. So big thanks to Supreme CBD for helping us with our stress, anxiety, with sleep, but most of all, for sponsoring the channel. But for now, enjoy the video.
I was just happy to hear he was the same age. So when we got to the Catskills, Brian, when we got to the Catskills, and I was introduced to Cus and to Camille and to Marnie and to Tom and to Jay and to everybody else that was there, it was an incredible, warm welcome. And it was like a home from home at that instance. I just fell in love with the place. And then I met Mike, and he was so welcoming as well. And I looked at him and I thought, he's smaller than me. And it turned out he was several months younger than me. And I thought, I'm going to batter you. But I didn't know what he was doing as a boxer at that stage of his life. You know, he was knocking men out left, right and centre. And we became instant friends talking about Barry McGuigan, because he had a fascination with Barry and the relationship that Barry had with Mr. Eastwood, who when I signed professional, I signed with Mr. Eastwood as well. Mm-hmm. But Mike had this fascination with Barry and Mr. Eastwood was like a father and son relationship, like what he had with Cus. He was also fascinated about the history of Irish boxing. Mike was like a walking encyclopedia of boxing. And we just hit it off instantly. We walked, talked, watched film footage that night, and I really got to like him. And I thought, I'm going to have to batter you in sparring tomorrow. I really believed that I had the measure of him. Next morning, me and him went jogging. Jogged for about a mile, then he took off like a gazelle. He was an incredible runner. And I just thought, yeah, go on, you tire yourself out. I'm going to take it out on you later on in the gym. Went back to the house, relaxed, a few hours. Then we travelled in the minibus down to Spa. And suddenly all these big powerhouses of men appear. We were living in the house. They were living in an annex. And I hadn't seen them. And they were all walking very sombre. But they knew what was coming. Stupid Paddy here didn't know what was coming.
They'd been sparring them before.
Yeah, they knew what was coming. They knew the damage that was coming. They knew the pain that was coming. And I'm looking at these guys walking like men going to the gallows. I'm getting on the minibus with them. I'm laughing. I'm so relaxed. I'm very confident because I've been fighting men, like I said, that 28-year-old Marine Sergeant. So there's no way a 17-year-old boy is going to hurt me like the men hurt me. Got to the gym, shadow boxed. Cus said, bandage up, glove up, get ready to spar. And I'm looking around and there's no sign of Mike. And I look into the ring and he's pacing the ring with his shirt off. And his body is incredible. His chest, his neck, his biceps. I hadn't seen him stripped to the waist. And there's no way a 17-year-old boy should look like this powerhouse. Cus pointed to one of the big, powerful men to get in, and he got knocked spark out with the first punch that landed. And I tell people, I'm not ashamed to say it, I ruined a good pair of underpants at that moment. As that punch landed, I shit myself. I thought, oh my God, this 17-year-old boy has this power. Anyway, 2 more got in. They got dispatched pretty quick. I was number 4. I got battered for 3 minutes, but I got out. I stayed on my feet for the 3 minutes and I got out. A couple more got in. Maybe I took the sting out of Mike's punches, but he didn't dispatch the next couple that quick. And I had a little bit of a respite and I got in again. I got battered again. I got battered for 6 minutes that day. But the madness in me, because I do believe that fighters have to have a bit of madness in them, you know. The madness in me, I thought, I'm going to get the better of you one day. I never did. I stayed on with Mike for 2 years and I'm very proud to say that I stayed on my feet. He hurt me, made me cry many times. But I stayed on my feet. And what that did for me, it gave me the courage and the confidence to believe, because psychological warfare in boxing is a big part of the sport, you know. And I believe psychologically, I believed if I could take Mike Tyson's punches, I could take anybody's punches. And even when I got battered by Lennox Lewis, and I did get battered by Lennox Lewis, it was an honour to share the ring with Mike and with Lennox. They achieved what I dreamed of achieving. But when I got battered by Lennox, my cornermen wanted to throw the towel in. And I said, no, I can take this punishment. And I stayed on my feet, only amateur, 3 rounds, but he was knocking everybody out. And I lost on points. But it was a great achievement for me to stay on my feet with 2 of the greatest heavyweights of all time, definitely of my era. And
of any era, for sure.
Of any era, yeah. I believe they could live in any era. And to be able to say all these years on that we're still friends, because that's what boxing does. It gives you a friendship, really, that can stand the test of time. You know, you exchange blows, but when the fight's over, you embrace. It's nothing really personal. Promoters try to make it personal because they've got to sell the fight, you know. But really, deep down, it shouldn't be anything personal. You know, there should be an admiration for your opponent. There should be a respect for your opponent. And if you don't admire him and you don't respect him, you won't train hard enough to fight him. You've got to respect him. You've got to know that that person, male or female, that's coming out of that opposite corner is coming to do damage to you. You know, they're going to punch you with the best of their ability. So you've got to be prepared to take them punches. You've got to be fit enough to go the distance at least, because a fighter's pride, stand up and fight until we hear the bell. Stand up and fight like hell. A fighter's pride, you want to hear that final bell. I begged referees not to stop me when I was cut to the bone. One fighter got 64 stitches. I was cut across the top of the eye, down the side of the eye, across the cheek, across this eye, across the lip.
Jesus.
64 stitches after that fight, and I pleaded with the referee, don't stop the fight. 5th round. I got my tooth knocked out in the 1st round, and I got cut to the bone. And I begged the referee, please don't stop the fight. The referee's name was Fred Teeth. He'd won the Olympic silver medal in 1956 for Ireland. And he was a family friend. He let his heart rule his head. I could see, but there was a lot of blood. Anyway, the fight was stopped. And I didn't want the fight to be stopped. I was doing okay. I was just getting badly cut. Anyway, when the fight was stopped, I went to the hospital. I got internal stitches, and it was a bloodbath. But my pride wanted me to hear that final bell.
Mike Tyson in his prime, what does a power punch feel like from him?
I had headgear on and he had big gloves on, and the pain when he lands that punch, it's like it's a bit of a numbing effect as well. It sort of numbs you but hurts you at the same time. But
he was so quick and
the
powerful.
Speed, people didn't give him the credit for the speed. But I wasn't really that tall for heavyweight. He hit a lot of the big guys with the uppercuts, and he lifted them off the floor.
He'd be spinning his hips around, wouldn't he?
But his head movement, people didn't give him the credit for his skill. People just gave him the credit for his power. Cus had him honed to perfection. I don't believe that we ever saw the best of Mike Tyson. When Mike launched my book in Canary Wharf, which was one of the most incredible days of my life, I said in my book, the best of Mike Tyson died when Cus died. Because we never saw the best of Mike. 20 years of age, Cus had already died when Mike won the world heavyweight title. And I think that affected Mike, because fighters need minding. They need to be cared for. They need to be nurtured properly to bring out the best of them.
They're quite sensitive individuals, actually, a lot of fighters.
Very, very sensitive.
I found that out the hard way once.
There's a lot of fighters have the similar stories.
Yeah.
Bullied as kids. If you talk to most fighters, they've experienced at some stage of their life bullying. And most fighters outside of the ropes are quite timid. Inside of the rope, when the bell goes, they fight. And that's what they're trained to do. But outside, they're placid, they're polite. And I think it's the greatest sport in the world. I think they're the greatest athletes in the world. But when Cus died, we never saw the best of Mike. Imagine what he could have done if Cus had lived a few more years.
Did you ever talk to Mike about his upbringing?
Yeah, we used to sit and talk all the time.
Yeah.
Where Mike came from in Brownsville in New York, I lived in Bay Ridge in Brooklyn for a while, and I know Brownsville. Shannon Briggs came from Brownsville as well. Brownsville was a very, very hard district, and Mike as a child had run the streets of Brownsville as a little boy.
Yeah.
And
he was arrested loads.
Listen,
apparently.
He was trying to fend for himself as a little boy, and he had really no proper parental guidance. He'd no love and affection as a child should have, really. I don't envy Mike's introduction into this world. I'm going to tell you a story now, right? I'll tell you a story now, separate to that, but still to do with that. Mm-hmm. Mike had spoke to my mum on the phone for 22 years, never met her. And this particular day, he said, "How's your mother doing, Joe?" I said, "She's not so good, Mike." I said, "She's had a lump removed from her neck, and we're very concerned that it's cancer. My Uncle Brian died of cancer at 47. He wasn't even a smoker. My mum was a smoker. I've lost my mum and dad now. They went in 2022, God rest them."
Mm-hmm.
But Mike said, "Let's go and visit your mum, Joe." So me, Mike and Scott Welch, former British and Commonwealth heavyweight champion, he fought under Tyson undercard. He fought Henry Ackam one day for 12 rounds. We've landed in Dublin to visit my mum, who's recently been released from hospital because of the lump removed from her neck. There was the MRSA bug. She couldn't stay in the hospital, so they put her to the care of her sister, my Auntie Linda. So she's at my Auntie Linda's house. There's hysteria, Mike Tyson coming into Dublin. Anyway, we went to my auntie's house. Mike met my mum for the first time after speaking to her. She used to thank Mike for looking after me. She said, "Oh, Mike, thank you so much for looking after my son. He was battering me week in, week out." But she didn't know that. He was minding me outside of the sparring centre.
Yeah.
He cared for me. And she spoke to him, and he embraced her. He put his arms around her and he held her. And this is a man that can break bones with punches, embracing a fragile woman. And it was beautiful to see. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they got talking about birthdays. My mum's birthday was the 12th of July. Mm-hmm. Mike's birthday is the 30th of June. And they're both of the same birth sign, Cancer. And Mike said, "Mrs. Egan," he said, "I remember on my 18th birthday, we were together when we were 17, Mike. So his 18th birthday would have been the first birthday that my mother sent him a present."
Wow.
And he said, "I remember on my 18th birthday, Mrs. Egan," he said, "you sent over a shoebox with some potato chips, Irish potato crisps, some money in an envelope. It would have been very little money, and some sweatshirts. There would have been second-hand sweatshirts. And that was 21, 22 years previous. And my mum said to Mike, you remember that, Mike? He said, Mrs. Egan, he said, yes, I remember it. He said, very few people have given me anything in my life. Yes, I remember it. Scott Welch got choked up. He had to leave the room. I broke down crying.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse the language. I don't curse very often. I'm crying. Mike's embracing my mum. And Mike looked at me and he goes, Joe, motherfucker, you're always crying. And he made me cry so many times. I do cry a lot, you know. I'm an emotional character. You know?
Same.
And
it gets worse as you get older, doesn't it? I feel like I cry more and more every year, mate.
That day, looking at a man that could have been a billionaire athlete, remembering a couple of packets of crisps, a couple of pounds in an envelope, and a couple of second-hand sweatshirts. I don't envy what he had to endure in his life. I envy his achievements in boxing, but I don't envy what he had to endure in his life.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, while we're on the subject of Mike's life, it as often is the case, when someone becomes the source of money, as you mentioned, the amount of money he earned, he probably did have $1 billion through his fingers at one point or another, but there were so many leeches and toxic people around him, and you know, you had Don King, for example, who wasn't great, you know, allegedly in the way.
It's the only sport in the world where the lambs rule the lions. You don't see boxing promoters standing on doors of nightclubs when their careers are finished, but yet you see heavyweight champions of the world standing on doors of nightclubs when their careers are finished. Joe Louis, one of the greatest of all time, stood on the door of a casino in Vegas. Tony TNT took a 2-time heavyweight champion of the world, standing on a door in Florida. That's just two to mention. You know, men that had millions go through their hands. But the parasites, the promoters, the managers, that really should wrap them in cotton wool and embrace them and look after them, instead abuse them. And it's sad, really, because it is the hardest earned money in the world. When you've got to fight blood and guts, train blood and guts, and then to get it took from you because of skullduggery, it's sad.
I love the way you just put that, the lambs rule the lions. It's very, very true. And even now in the UFC, we're seeing a lot of UFC fighters going through a lawsuit to get proper pay because of the situation over there as well. And yeah, that story of what you've just told there about, you know, that first present, one of the very few presents he ever got in his life, probably quite a magical thing to remember. I mean, as painful as that is, it's a beautiful memory, mate. And we mentioned Cus earlier. What was Cus like to be around?
He was wonderful.
Yeah?
He was a caring gentleman. He lived for the boxers. He lived for the boxing. And he took on the mafia, a brave man to take on an organised crime organisation that still to this day are going strong. You know, the mafia, the Cosa Nostra. Michael Franzese is coming over on a tour soon, and a lovely man, but he was a mafia don. And they have to rule with an iron fist. They're not going to rule with kind words. They've got to rule with bullets, and they've got to rule with venom. And Cus had the courage to stand up to the dominance of the mafia with boxing. And I admire that man so much, but he was such a warm character and just a really, really kind gentleman. And it was a privilege to be with him.
One of the greats, wasn't he? And
he trained.
He didn't adopt Mike.
He did, yeah. He legally adopted Mike. He trained Floyd Patterson and he trained Jose Torres, two great champions of the world. Mike was another champion of the world for him.
I mean, this sport is built on people like yourself who, you know, we all remember the legends, the champions, but people like you are the ones who've got to get in there with them and to give them that legacy. And that's why I respect, like, if anyone's ever got in the ring, they've got my respect for sure. But one fight that might be happening soon, apparently, is Iron Mike Tyson versus Fedor Emelianenko. I don't know if you've ever heard of Fedor. He was a heavyweight MMA champion, one of the greatest of all time. Quite like Mike in that he was an undersized heavyweight, but an explosive puncher. A Russian, actually. And he's 47. I think Mike's 57.
Mike's 57. He'll be 58 on June 30th.
Yeah, so they're thinking about making this. Apparently, it's all over Twitter. I don't know if it's happening for sure, but it seems like they want to make the fight. And look, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens in Saudi Arabia with all of the fights that they're putting on. And Mike is very in with the Saudis because he was helping train Francis Ngannou for that last fight. So yeah, we might yet see one last go of Mike Tyson.
Mike, when he fought Roy Jones Jr., Mike has still got a lot left in him. Even though he's burnt the candle at both ends with lifestyle,
yeah,
he's still got a lot left in him, you know, because when he gets fit, that power that he's got, you never lose that power. You might lose the speed to deliver that punch, but Mike has still got a lot left to offer.
Do you know the thing that shocked me about that fight, mate, was Roy Jones, obviously, he's fought quite recently, and he's sort of always been in and out of the ring for the last, 20 years. A lot. He went a lot longer than what people thought he should have, but he fought more recently, and Mike was the one who looked like the fresher, sharper guy in that he looked far more dangerous, and that I felt like he was holding back a little bit. I don't know if you thought that.
With Roy?
Yeah, I felt,
of course he was.
I think he could have.
I never believed in my heart and soul, that Mike could pull his punches. But when he fought Roy Jones Jr., Mike hit Roy with a body punch in the first round, and you could hear the sickness as that punch landed. It hurt Roy.
Yeah.
But Mike showed Roy the respect. I'm not saying he carried him, but he didn't go on to hurt him anymore than he needed to.
He could have hurt him a lot worse.
Could have hurt him a lot worse.
And look,
and I respect Mike for that, because Roy is an incredible champion, 4-weight champion of the world. To do what he's done in boxing is a major achievement.
Well, he was offering Tommy Fury a fight recently, which would have been weird. But, you've got your likes of Evander Holyfield, who fought not long ago. He fought Vitor Belfort, the MMA guy, and his punch resistance was gone. And that's sad to see for me.
I don't understand how his cornermen or his trainers didn't see that in sparring and training. Evander Holyfield is one of the greatest champions of all time. Take nothing away from the man that beat him that night, but it was a shell of a man that he beat. But his cornermen, his trainers, would have seen flaws in Evander in the gym long before that fight. And I don't understand how that could happen on that night, that he folded with that first punch as such. His punch resistance shouldn't have gone that bad for a man with a granite chin, One of the toughest of all time. One of the greatest of all time, And the real deal, as he used to call himself.
Absolutely was, yeah.
And a nice man into the bargain. But the same thing again, he's had financial difficulties.
Maybe that's why they didn't throw the towel in.
I think that's why when they let him fight, it was for the money. And as I said earlier, Haftu is a horrible master. He's got a lot of children. He's got grandchildren. He's got ex-wives. He's got paternity suits. He's got all sorts of lawsuits and stuff with money. And I don't know his personal life. I know the man. He's a lovely, lovely man. But when you've got to come back after what he's achieved in boxing for $1, it's sad.
Imagine, right? You're going through all of that, getting brutalized by people like Mike Tyson and getting in fighting through like everything Holyfield came through, and then you decide you want to split it with the missus, and all of a sudden you're half the money that you've been bleeding and blood, sweat and tears for. It's just like, bye. Like, it's fucking ridiculous, that, in my opinion. Like, it's outrageous.
I think he's had a few wives.
Yeah.
I think he's had a few divorces. So he's been hit hard in the pocket.
Fucking hell, mate.
He's been hit hard in the pocket.
Yeah.
But it's sad when it happens. But there's no, in boxing, like they have in soccer, there's no testimonial match. Your last fight really is your last payday in boxing. You might get a few after dinner speaking events. They might line the pockets for a couple of weeks. It's not enough to live on.
Yeah, and look, that's even for the champions, let alone, people like yourself who are just trying to make it work as any way you could. So let's go to the point where you do finish boxing. Let's talk about life after boxing for you. What happened next?
When my boxing career finished, I was in limbo land.
Mm-hmm.
And I went into a bit of a depression for a couple of years because it was took from me because of a car crash. And I never understood depression. People used to say to me about depression, I used to say, behave yourself until it hits you. And then it's like the sucker punch from hell. And I went into limbo land for a couple of years, didn't know what to do with myself because everything was boxing. I was going to make my fortune boxing. I was going to live the life of Riley boxing, and it didn't happen. When the accident happened, I went downhill very fast.
What part of you was injured from the accident?
Shattered my knee, shattered my shoulder, shattered my jaw. I was in a coach and a taxi crashed into the coach I was on. And that depression hit me hard. And then I spoke to my dad and I said, I don't know what to do with my life, Dad. He said, go and see Paddy Finn. Paddy Finn's the Irish ex-heavyweight boxing champion. And I used to want to emulate Paddy. He was Irish heavyweight champion from my old boxing club, the North. Tony Mann and Benny Bracken, they trained a lot of Irish champions, and Paddy was the man.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be him. People say, who do you want to emulate in boxing? And I idolised Muhammad Ali. I adored Muhammad Ali, but I never could achieve what Muhammad Ali achieved. But I believed that I had in me to achieve what Paddy Finn achieved, winning the Irish title. And I said, I want to emulate Paddy Finn. And we became great friends. He was older than me, but he helped me so many times over the years in my career. So when he retired from boxing because he had a damaged disc in his back, I came over to visit him in Birmingham. And I said, Paddy, I've been in a bit of a depression for a couple of years and I don't know what to do with my life. He said, well, come on over, he said, and work for me. He said, I'll teach you the trade of the pub trade. He said, I'll get you some courses. I've done a BII course, British Institute of Innkeeping. I've done 2 MVQ courses. I left school with 2 swimming certificates. And now suddenly I've got a BII certificate and 2 MVQs. And I've done a licensee course and became the licensee of the Dubliner pub for Paddy Finn for 2 years. And then I went on to get my own pub. And I was living the second bite at the apple. Some people don't get one bite of the apple. I'd had my first bite. My boxing, it didn't work. Now I've got a second bite at the apple in the pub trade. But then the racketeers, the gangsters, protection racketeers, I took over the Lindhurst pub in September 97. In July 1998, the racketeers, 19th of July, they put a protection demand on the pub, £500 a week for protection money. I bowed to royalty out of respect. I bowed to no man out of fear. And I said no. The following week, the 26th of July 1998, they attacked my pub, 37 of them with a handgun, a shotgun, hatchets and machetes. And I took 2 gunshot wounds. And it was a horrible day in my life. I said in the newspapers, the battle at the Lindhurst made Braveheart look like a Walt Disney film. We had a Sunday communion on in the function room. The pub was frequented by ex-boxers, tough guys, my friends. And I was blessed that they were there on that day for no other reason than they frequented the pub. And one man in particular, a guy called Steve Dalton, he ran at the bullets. I hid behind a wall. When the guy that was doing the shooting stepped in and was doing the shooting, I hid behind a wall. I was terrified. People ask me, who hurt you the most? Mike Tyson or Lennox Lewis? Well, the man that shot me hurt me the most because lead hurts harder than leather. And he hurt me the most. But Steve Dalton ran at that man. He ran at the bullets. And I blessed myself. I thought, he's going to die. He got shot twice as well, but he was the bravest man I've ever met in my life. And he put his life on the line. For me, for a friend, for no financial gain, just a friend. And incredible. But that day, a band of brothers that day stood staunch against bully boys. Nobody likes a bully. I hate bullies with a passion. I've dealt with bullies all my life, from boy to man. And that day was probably one of the most horrible days of my life. it helped me in life because different things that test you help you in life, you know. And that particular day, I didn't die. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And
can you describe sort of how it sort of unfolded in terms of where you are when people are coming through the door and that sort of thing?
The armed response unit was aware that day, and it still took the police 55 minutes to get to my pub to help me.
Do you think that was there's a reason for that?
The particular gang that had attacked my pub had been ruling Birmingham for parts of Birmingham for 15 years. Paddy Finn, they actually burnt down 2 of his pubs over time. You know, they're a well-renowned thug gang.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying the police were afraid of them, but the police that particular day wasn't a police force. It was a police farce that day because they let me down. They let my patrons of my pub down. And I was badly wounded. I hit behind a wall by a man called Tim O'Regan, who had fought in World War II, an Irishman that fought in the British Army in World War II. He stepped out with his hands up. He said, please. He said, I can stop this. As he stepped out with his hands up, Steve Dalton had been shot. I stepped out from behind the wall to pull him back in behind the wall. And the man that was doing the shooting threw the handgun on the ground. He'd emptied 3 shots from a handgun, a 5-shot handgun. He'd emptied 3 shots, 2 hit Dalton. He was handed a shotgun, a sawn-off shotgun. And I've looked into many men's eyes in the boxing ring. I've looked into many men's eyes on the door of a nightclub. I've never looked into evil like it in my life. He looked through Tim O'Regan to shoot me. And he blasted the shotgun and he hit Tim O'Regan in the hips. And he blasted an old man that had fought in World War II. In a bad way, he took a severe impact with a shotgun blast. A lot of the shotgun pellets then around my body. And the smell of burning skin was the most horrific smell I'd ever smelt in my life. And it turned out it was my skin, not just Tim O'Regan's, because the shotgun pellets was actually burning my skin.
Yeah.
And there was a stench. It was horrific. But
so where were you hit in total?
Shotgun pellets, because I was wider than Tim.
Yeah, you were a big man.
And he had the hip blasted clean out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a nasty, horrific day. And then my life spiraled out of control after that because my ex-missus, she abandoned me. She cleared off with Michael Flatley, the Riverdance guy. It was all over the world's news because I was a sinking ship. Sinking pretty fast.
Michael Flatley, of all people, for people who don't know, he was a very famous dancer back in the day.
He was the biggest star of Irish dancing of all time. Yeah. He was earning £1 million a week. Listen, I'd have nearly cleared off with him myself to tell you the truth, you know. But they said I wasn't a fit and proper person to run a pub because of what had happened. I was the one that was attacked, so they were trying to evict me, right? Now, I'd already been through an eviction. My family was evicted when I was a child in Dublin, you know, so I know about evictions. And they were trying to evict me from the pub, so I had to fight them, trying to hold on to the roof over my head. I had to fight with Lisa, my ex, to hold on to a roof that I had in Ireland, property that I had in Ireland.
Oh, because she was in the
house in Ireland.
Yeah.
And then to add insult to injury, I was charged with attempted murder. And all I'd done was defend myself. So now I'm fighting on 3 fronts. And I ran out of money. I was selling everything I had to pay for legal fees.
Yeah.
And I sold my car, sold my watch that my mum got me for my 18th birthday, my ring that my dad had got me for my 21st. I sold everything I had to pay legal fees. What was being done to me was an injustice. All I'd done was defend myself. And I'll do the same again today. I defend myself.
So how attempted murder?
Because that particular day there was a lot of people wounded. But I was the only one that was charged. My doorman, Danny Brown, he was charged, but the charges were dropped against him. And I was the only one that was charged.
So none of the gang members?
No. And a lot of them were balaclavaed up and scarves on their faces and everything else. But I beat the charges. Headlines in the newspaper, justice prevails. I beat the brewery. I kept my pub. But it was never the same again after that. My house in Ireland.
Scared to come then, aren't they?
My house in Ireland. I got that as well, but I ended up selling it cheap. So I lost. Even though I won on all three fronts, I lost. But the sad thing, what I had to do to fight, was I had to turn to crime. And I regret it to this day. Ashamed of myself that I did it. I'd never been in trouble in my life before. Like I said earlier in the interview, the only time I saw my dad cry was when I was sent to... The only time I saw him cry was when his daddy died. And when I got sent to prison, I watched him cry. And... but my life went out of control. And
what kind of crime was it that you turned to?
What happened was there was a guy who used to frequent the pub, and he was involved in stolen cars. And he asked could he park stolen cars on my car park of my pub. At that time, I was so desperate for money. He could have parked tanks on my car park. I wouldn't have cared. I just needed the money. I was paying legal fees hand over fist. And it was so hard to just keep paying out legal fees. I had an abscess burst in my bowel with the stress I was going through. And I collapsed twice with the pain of the abscess poison. I could have got septicemia. I could have died. The pain that went through my body with the poison from the abscess burst in my bowel, I collapsed twice. And I was very lucky to survive.
The thing that's hit me is, as far as I'm aware, you're not the one stealing the cars.
I was the one that allowed them to be parked on my car park.
So is that what they got you on?
Yeah, they got it on a conspiracy. Right,
so you were a part of the operation.
I'm ashamed to say, yes. I'm ashamed to say.
How long did they give you?
I originally got 2.5 years, but because I'd exposed the West Midlands police, they increased my sentence. They tried to increase it to 7, they increased it to 4, ended up serving 2 years. But while I was in the prison, I saved a man's life, and I came out a better person.
How did that happen?
One of the prison officers took a heart attack. And when I was a kid, I was in the St. John's Ambulance Brigade, so I know a little bit about first aid. I attended the man. I set off the alarm. The security response team got the man to the hospital, and he survived. I got accommodation from the governor. I was just happy to save the man's life. He didn't put me in prison. He was there to supervise my stay.
Yeah.
You know, I put myself in prison by doing what I'd done. I'm ashamed of what I'd done. But while I was in there, I made the best of it. I came out a better person than what I went in.
Did you not have any issues with the screws or anything like that?
No. I had a little bit of an issue with bully boys in the prison.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You know, there's a little bit of gang warfare, and I was in 3 different prisons. And like,
why 3? Did they move you, like, deliberately because of that, or?
No, you get moved for one reason or another. All right. You know, but bully boys tend to act in gangs.
Yeah.
You know, they're really yellow. And what do bananas come in a bunch? And that's what the bullies are as well. You know, they come in packs, pack animals. And I diffused a few of the bully boys in prison. Same as I diffused a few of the bully boys outside of prison. And no one likes a bully. But when I came out of prison, I wanted to turn my life around. I made the comeback into boxing. I became Joe the Boxer again, not Joe the Convict. I redeemed myself from my daddy's eyes, which I was so proud of. And then I met a friend, a man called Ken Purchase, and another friend, a man called Charlie Hale. And they were running after dinner speaking events. And they said, we're going to do a dinner with Joe Frazier, Joe, one of the greatest heavyweight champions of all time. And I'd sparred Mike for the Frazier fight, as far as I remember. But I knew Marvis anyway. I knew I was with Mike at the time when he fought Marvis. And I went to the dinner, and I got to share the top table with Joe Frazier. I got to share the top table with Marvis, sitting beside them, Steve Collins, Alan Minter, Charlie Magri, John H. Tracy, great champions. I'm sitting on the table with this illustrious company. And I was so honoured and humbled to be at the top table.
Did that help your self-esteem after feeling like shit in prison and that?
Did it what?
Yeah.
In the acknowledgements in my book, I thank Ken Purchase and Charlie Hale, first two. They gave me a chance. No one else gave me a chance. And when I was at the dinner, I met Cass Pennant. I knew who Cass was because my nephew, Tom, he's a West Ham fan, and I knew who Cass was. He's the bookman. And I said to Cass, it's good to meet you. You might write a book about me. Half joking, half holding earnest.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, let me listen to what you got to say tonight. And he said, if it's good, we'll talk. I had 5 minutes. I got as much as I possibly could in 5 minutes, trying to impress this man, Cass Pennant, wanting him to take an interest in me. I was directing everything at him. Anyway, afterwards, I went over and I spoke to him. And he said, you're an interesting character. He said, if we can get Mike Tyson involved, he said, there might be a book in you. Come to my office tomorrow. I went to his office on Tottenham Court Road the next day. And we phoned Mike. Mike was in Brazil. And I phoned Mike. I said, Mike, this man might do a book about me. Will you help? And Mike came onto the phone to Cass and he said to Cass, this is fact, anything for my brother Joe. And Mike agreed to come over, launch the book. He agreed to do the forward for the book. He brought Canary Wharf to a standstill. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people in Canary Wharf when Mike launched my book in 2005. I know everybody was there for Mike Tyson, but Mike was there for me.
That's such a spot.
Oh, incredible. Incredible. Several world champions in attendance. Charlie Magri, Alan Minter, Paul Silky Jones, Brian London was there. Loads of great champions in attendance. Barry McGuigan, I got the photographs on my phone. Queued with his son Shane, with the ordinary people. And I got the photographs on my phone. Mike Tyson's jumped up. Barry McGuigan. Shane was standing beside his daddy. Barry queued with the normal people. And Mike was in order. Barry McGuigan was there. And Barry came round the table. Mike summons him around. I got all the photographs to show you afterwards. Mike summons him around the table. They embraced. And Barry McGuigan standing there. And Mike's going, yo, Barry McGuigan, what are you queuing for? But the man is humble. Anyway, afterwards, I'm talking to Shane. Shane was 16 at the time. He said, that's just my dad. I said, your dad is Barry McGuigan, one of the greatest featherweight champions Ireland's ever produced, one of the greatest world champions of all time. They had a private audience back in the hotel in Park Lane, Mike and Barry and Shane, and it was incredible. But Barry, I used to tell, Mike Tyson loves you dearly, admires you so much. And Barry used to laugh. I said, no, I'm telling you. And then when that day he saw it with his own eyes, I said to Barry, I told you, didn't I? And he laughed. But when Cass published my book, he had a movie made about his life called Cass. And he gave me a part in the movie. I played the landlord of the Britannia pub.
Ironic.
Yes, ironic, yeah. Not that I'm any good of an actor. Just it was an easy part to play after running a pub. And I met Tamer Hassan, the actor on the film set. A big star. And he said, Joe, you got a great presence on screen. He said, do you fancy an acting career? My agent could do something with you. I said, I've acted my way through a boxing career. I'll give it a go.
I love it.
So he introduced me to his agent. His agent said there's a part in a film called Sherlock Holmes, and they're looking for a character called McMurdo to fight Robert Downey Jr. Do you want to go for the part? I said, yeah, give it a go. So I went along, done the audition. The casting agent said, look into the camera lens, give an intimidating stare, say this line. So I looked into the camera lens, gave the intimidating stare, said the line. They went, wow, you've got an amazing, intimidating stare. I said, I have to look into the eyes of Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis to try and intimidate them. If I can intimidate them, I can intimidate you easy enough. Anyway, I got the part. I went along to the read-through in Claridge's Hotel in London. Me and my friend Richard Grimes, he drove me down. And we're sitting in the big lounge suite at a Claridge's Hotel. My nameplate, Joe Egan, next to Jude Law, Robert Downey Jr., Rachel McAdams, Eddie Marsan, all the stars of the film, all the hierarchy of Warner Brothers. I'm sitting opposite Guy Ritchie and Joel Silver, the CEO of Warner Brothers. And Guy said, Joe, I've been trying to get you in one of my films for a long time. I said, you're joking. And Robert Downey Jr. leaned in front of my friend Richard Grimes. And he said, Joe, you come with a fearsome reputation. I couldn't believe that these people even knew me, but they knew me through Mike Tyson. And I was so shocked. Anyway, we travelled in the minibus to do the practice fight. And the guy said, "How are things, Joe?" I said, "Things are okay, guy. I'm making ends meet." He says, "Your agent told you much again for the fight scene?" I said, "Guy, I never even asked. I'm just so honoured to be in your film." When he told me, it was more than I got in any of my professional fights. I was deadly serious. I said, "Guy, for that money," I said, "Robert Downey Jr. can really hit me. You can kick me as well if you want to." And he took a fit of laughing. He said, "Joe, I don't want you being beaten up." I said, "Guy, I've been beaten up for a lot less. I'll do a few weeks in hospital for that money." Anyway, I didn't have to do the fight scene. He put me in the prison scene. That wasn't in the script. And I get called Big Joe by an Academy Award winner in a Warner Brothers movie directed by Guy Ritchie. And my mum was so proud. She never wanted me to box, Brian. No mother wants to see her son being beaten up.
Yeah.
She never wanted me to box. But she saw me getting killed and beaten up in film many, many times. And she didn't mind because she knew it wasn't real.
Yeah.
You know, and it made me feel so good because I'd like to think that my boxing made my dad proud and my films made my mum proud. And as I said earlier in the interview, it's all you want to do in life is do your parents proud. And I hope I did.
Absolutely, man. There's no doubt in anyone's mind of that after hearing this story.
The parts are getting bigger with experience. I've recently done a film a while back, the last film I'd done just before my mum and dad died. I did prize fighter with Russell Crowe. And he calls me Joe in the film. Actually, I haven't seen the film. And he calls me Joe, another Academy Award winner, calling me by my own name. So I get called my own name in 2 films by 2 Academy Award winners. The parts are getting bigger with experience. I get to play the gangster or the tough guy. You know, I've had to live the life of a tough guy. And
well, when I met you the other night, mate, I took one look at you and I thought, well, he looks like the bad guy in the movie, doesn't he?
That's the part, that's the parts I get, you know?
Yeah.
And they're easy parts to play because I've had to live that life of a tough guy, standing on the doors, working security, you know, boxing. I've had to live that life, you know. I haven't had to do any sort of testing, acting, because I haven't had to play anything other than what I've had to live in life. Tough guy.
Russell Crowe's a big name. I mean,
powerful name in acting. Gladiator, Maximus is one of my favourite films, but I loved him in most of his films that he'd done. But when he'd done The Cinderella Man, incredible film. Yeah. Incredible film.
Gladiator's so good.
Oh, brilliant. But the thing is, my dream...
Can I do an impression for you?
Go on then.
Go on then. Ready?
Yeah.
Father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
Very good.
There you go. Hey, get me in the next one.
Very good. Do you know what I'd
Maximus Decimus Meridius.
Unbelievable.
I've got a few more questions for you.
Go ahead.
So I want to ask you about the first time you've ever been dropped.
My dad used to call me for my runs in the morning. I never liked the running. And my dad used to call me to go running in the morning, the early hours of the morning. And he said, "Oh no, Dad, I don't want to go out running. Drag yourself out of bed, son. It's like dragging yourself off the deck when you get put down." I said, "No one's going to put me down, Dad. No one's going to put me down. My chin's granite, my legs are strong." I've been put onto the ropes a few times, but I've never been put flat on my back. The first time I was put flat on my back in 1987 in the Acropolis Games. I'm in the semi-finals, and I'd had 2 hard fights to get to the semi-finals. And my left eye was damaged. And had a go in the first round before my eye completely closed. And in the second round, the Greek hit me with a punch. I didn't see the punch coming, but I didn't feel the punch. I'm flat on my back. And I'm lying on my back. And I'm doing this. I'm looking for my bed sheets. I'm asleep, but I'm looking for my bed sheet.
Oh, wow.
My 2 cornermen, Mickey Hawkins and Jerry Hanna, they thought I was calling them into the ring. I wasn't. I'm on my back in bed. I'm asleep. I turn onto my side. My left eye's completely closed. My right eye's open. And I see the referee go 5. So from the time I was hit, to the time I fell, to the time I'm lying on my back, to the time I'm pulling my bedsheets over me, to the time I see the referee, it's 15 seconds. I'm asleep. I thought, oh my God, I'm on the deck here. I got to my feet. The 2 cornermen were in the ring. I fell into their arms. I got stopped on my feet. The man that beat me went on to get the gold medal, so I lost to the eventual gold medalist. But I remember phoning my dad. I said, "Dad, I won a bronze medal." He said, "Well done, son." I said, Dad, remember you told me about dragging myself out of bed in the morning is like dragging yourself off the deck. He said, did you get decked, son? I said, I did that. I got decked. I got put down in round 2, but I got to my feet, Dad. I got beat on my feet. But it was exactly like you described. It was like being asleep in bed. And I never felt the punch. Yeah. People ask me about the hardest punch I've ever been hit. The hardest punch I ever got hit was by Victor Cordova. I was sparring in Mr. Eastwood's gym in Belfast. And he was the Panamanian super middleweight champion of the world. And they wanted him to impress in front of the camera for a title fight in Belfast. And they got me into sparring with him to throw. He was throwing combinations to show his brilliance. And he hit me an uppercut. And he caught me on the tip of my nose.
Oof.
And they say you can kill a man by driving the bone of the nose.
I've heard that before.
This is what they say. And
I guess it's not true because you're still here. Like,
it hurt me that much. The pain went from my nose to my ankles. The blood went everywhere. My 2 eyes closed. And I was so badly hurt with that one punch. Mike hit me with a lot of hurtful punches. Lennox Lewis hit me with a lot of hurtful punches. And a lot of fighters over the years have hit me with a lot of hurtful punches. But that one punch I remember that hurt the most. But the one that actually put me flat on my back, I never felt it. Strange, isn't it?
It's this. They say it's the ones you don't see, I guess, that often are the ones that drop people.
Yeah.
Of all the people you've met in this life, who is it that helped you the most?
Oh, I've had a lot of people help me in my life. But there's a particular man, man called John O'Connor. We go way back. He raced my brother when they were kids. And him and his business partner, John has a company called Welch Civils, and his business partner, Ali. They have Welch Civils. Ali has a jewellery shop as well called Lois Bullion. That was the sign in the background of the thing. Yeah, them two in particular at this stage of my life have been a breath of fresh air.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because the last few years have been hard.
Yeah.
Very, very hard.
Respect to that, mate. In terms of the other side of the coin, who would you say, in looking back in life, was the one that let you down the most?
The Irish government. They've let me down. They let my family down. Me and my brother used to chop sticks as kids. We used to buy a bag of logs, and we used to get the inner tube of a car, and we used to cut the inner tube of a car across to make a big elastic band. And we used to get a bag of logs, and we used to chop the logs into sticks. And we used to sell the 150 bag of logs for £7.50 bundles of sticks. And we used to do it from the back garden of our council house. Anyway, somebody reported 2 boys working, 12, 13, 14, making money from the back of a council house. And the Dublin Corporation, the council at the time, put the rents up to maximum rent. And they backdated it 2 years. And they said my family owed £6,000 in arrears. I was away boxing for Ireland, away boxing for Dublin, or away boxing anyway, in Denmark. And while I was away, Dublin Council Corporation evicted my family. There was a 4-day siege. My mum cut her wrists and stuck a knife on her stomach. She tried to kill herself, which was horrific. My dad fought the bailiffs off for 4 days. And eventually, after 4 days, the Irish Police Force, the Garda Síochána, they were called in. My grandfather was a sergeant in the Irish Police Force at one stage of his life. He was a policeman all his life. So my dad respected the Garda, and they came out of the house and they gave the house up. I didn't even know this was going on. I'm away boxing in Denmark, in Esbjerg and Copenhagen as a young boy. I didn't know this was going on. So when I'm ringing home after my fights, I couldn't get an answer on the phone. So I rang my nana, and my nana broke down crying. She said, your mum's okay. She said, okay. So what are you on about, nana? She said, your mum's tried to kill herself. I said, no. My mum wouldn't do that. Anyway, when I got picked up at Dublin Airport, I got dropped at the bottom of my road. The TD, which is like an MP in the Irish government, Sean Moore, he was fighting for my family. It was wrong what they were doing to my family. It was wrong on all levels, right? He fought for the family. They actually named the road Sean Moore Road after him. And the coach, the minibus dropped me at the bottom of my road, and my sports bag and my suitcase, and I ran that road. And when I came into view of my family home, 6 Bremen Grove, my dad sitting outside on a rocking chair, all my family's belongings up on the street, all my boxing trophies were smashed. The bailiffs had smashed my boxing trophies. And it was wrong on every level what they did to my family on that housing estate. It didn't need to come to that. It didn't need to come to that. They made an example of my family. That council, years later, was exposed for corruption. That housing estate that house was on, that was the housing estate that my auntie lived on, that I went on to with Mike Tyson. I walked onto that housing estate all them years later with Mike Tyson. And that was something that should never have happened. It broke a family. And it was wrong. It didn't need to come to that.
That's so powerful, that, mate. You've came through so much, it's unbelievable. It's all right, mate. Take your time, bro.
I wasn't there.
Are you beating yourself up because you wasn't there?
Yeah.
Mate, you were just a kid. You didn't even know. And I bet you they didn't tell you for that reason, because they wouldn't have wanted to worry you when you were out trying to make a better life for yourself. And you still sent money home to them. So you did everything you could have done. It's out of order, that. Like, that's disgraceful that they did that to them. Whereabouts in Ireland was this?
Dublin. Ringsend. 6 Bremen Grove. My younger brothers and sisters had to endure that. My mum, front page news, getting carried down a stretcher, first floor window, after sticking a knife in herself.
No wonder
When I said to you earlier on, I've had a hard life.
Yes, bro.
The boxing ring was safe for me.
Yeah.
And I know if this John Fury fight comes off, it's not going to faze me. Know what I've been through in my life. Nothing can faze me.
Well, I hope you get it, mate, because you deserve it. You deserve your moment. But you've done really well, you know. You should be proud of yourself. I hope you are. After everything you've been through to achieve all that.
I haven't told you hardly anything of what I've had to endure in life. You know, I've had battles in New York. I've had battles in Belfast. I've had battles in Dublin.
Yeah.
I've had battles in Birmingham. I've had battles in London. I've had battles all my life. Because as I said to you earlier on, not about the royalty out of respect, about the no man out of fear. I can't do it. I won't do it. And that's the shirt that I wear. Fear. Face everything and rise. I won't forget everything and run. I face it and rise.
Yes. I love that. Well done, mate. Honestly.
Thank you.
I love the attitude.
I'm sorry.
Don't worry. Don't apologise.
That I cry.
We're fucking grateful for your story. Everyone who's listening right now.
Like Mike Tyson said, Joe, you're always crying.
Do you know Mike Tyson loves a good cry as well, though? So he
cries. Me and him have cried together.
Yeah.
Me and him have cried together.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He hurt me with his punches and I hurt his knuckles.
You know, when Mike Tyson talks about Muhammad Ali,
oh yeah,
that's when I watch him go, when he talks about how great Muhammad Ali was.
To me, the greatest of all time, like he says, GOAT, GOAT, the greatest of all time. I met the man 4 times. I went to his house in Michigan.
Who's that?
Muhammad Ali.
Really?
I went to his house in Michigan. I met him at his home. Al Capone used to own the house. I've been in his house. I've been in his home with him and his wife, God rest him, before he died. I met him in Louisville. I met him with his brother. I met him in Washington, D.C. when Layla boxed.
Wow,
she fought the Irish girl, Erin Toha, and I met him in New York with Mike. I met him on 4 occasions. To be in the presence of greatness, not just the greatest man to enter a boxing ring, but one of the greatest men to enter this world. Boxing was privileged to have him. He could have turned his hand to baseball, American football, basketball. He was just a supreme athlete. Boxing was privileged to have him. And he was, like I said, one of the greatest human beings ever. He's up there with the greatest.
What was he like when you met him?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful to talk to be in the presence of. It was incredible.
What was Mike like around him? Because Mike was in
awe of him.
Yeah.
I used to do an Ali shuffle as a tribute to Muhammad Ali long before I ever met him. My dad met him first. My dad met him at the Steve Collins fight, when Steve Collins fought, and he was Reggie Johnson. And Steve fought him, and my brother-in-law, the policeman in New York, got them tickets. And my dad, my sister, my nephew Tom would have been 3 or 4 at the time. And he ran through the feet or the legs of the bodyguards. And my dad was trying to stop the bodyguards. And Muhammad Ali went, no. And Muhammad Ali picked up my nephew Tom. I think he was 3. And my dad stood beside Muhammad Ali, holding my nephew Tom, my sister's boy. And I used to envy my dad, and I used to envy Tom. Tom was too young to understand who he was holding him up.
Yeah.
But I used to envy my dad that he met Muhammad Ali before me.
Yeah.
But when I met him on 4 occasions, just in total awe. And even now talking about it, it still gives me one of the greatest feelings that I've ever had, to have met that man.
But what he went through, I mean, I did a bit of research because he was a bit before my time, and when I looked into him, saying, you know, how he used to say, look, I won you lot a gold medal, and I can't even eat and go into the same restaurants as all you lot because of the segregation that's going on. You won't even call me by the name that I'm asking you to call. You won't show me that respect after I've won this country a gold medal. Now I'm world champion, and you want me to go and die for your causes? It was disgraceful the way he was treated.
I'll tell you a story about Evander Holyfield. I did a dinner with him in Spain, and they asked Evander Holyfield a question, what it was like winning his first world title. I think he won the world cruiserweight title.
Mm-hmm.
And he said where he lived in Georgia, there was a club that he wasn't allowed to go into because of his colour.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he used to queue to try to get in. And when he get to the front of the queue, they would turn him away. And I'm sitting in the dinner in Spain in front of an audience of 800 people, 1,000 people.
Mm.
And he said, when I won the world title for the first time, he said, I didn't even have to queue to get into that nightclub. And I thought, that's what it meant, because they wouldn't allow him in before, even with his Olympic bronze medal. And when he won the world title, he said, I didn't even have to queue to get into that nightclub. And I just thought, that's not that long ago.
It isn't, exactly.
You know, and racism is a horrific, horrible thing.
Mm.
I've experienced racism. The same people that hate black people, that hate Asian people, also hate the Irish people.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing we don't do as an Irish nation. We don't do racism. We fight each other. I've had some great punch-ups with my 2 brothers, you know, but that's sibling rivalry.
Yeah.
But we don't fight against a man because of his colour, you know, and it's horrible, racism. It shouldn't be. Listen, men and women died in the world wars against fascism and racism. Then people would roll over in their graves as racists were to get away with what these people died fighting against.
You mentioned about the story of Muhammad Ali. I've actually recently interviewed his grandson, who's now making a go of boxing. I don't know if you know that. I think it's called Nico Ali Walsh. He's one of Muhammad Ali's daughter's sons.
Okay.
And he's a good boxer. So yeah, there's still life left in the bloodline. So we'll see what happens with the young lad.
It's an incredible act for the man to have to follow the pressures on his shoulders.
Imagine. You
know, it's like any champion sibling to perform, you know, after the parent-setting precedent of becoming a champion.
Yeah, because Layla was a hell of a champion as well.
Incredible fighter. When she beat Erin Toha that night in Washington, D.C., it was on the Tyson McBride undercard.
Yeah.
And Erin Toha, of Irish descent, gave a great performance for 3 rounds, but Layla's class was just too much for her.
Massive and athletic, wasn't she?
Incredible fighter. But some of these great champions, children, like there was Jackie Fraser-Hyde, Joe Fraser's daughter, Layla Ali, Muhammad Ali's daughter.
Did you see the Netflix show? They've got one called Untold.
No. There's
a female boxer who ended up fighting Layla. She fought on an undercard of a Mike Tyson undercard, this woman. I'm going to have to Google that right now so I know what the hell I'm talking about.
You know, when I sat in the green room filming Sherlock Holmes, Rachel McAdams, I'm sitting in the green room with Rachel McAdams, and she said, Joe, you used to box. I said, a long time ago, Rachel. She said, I'm reading a boxing script at the moment. She's filming Sherlock Holmes. I said, are you? She said, yeah. I said, what's it called? She said, Southpaw. I said, is it good? She said, very good. 2 years later, she won the Academy Award for it. But I sat in the green room talking to her about that.
Have you seen, so it's Christy Martin.
Great fighter.
Yeah, she
was one of the early women champions.
Oh, she's a pioneer, yeah.
But there was also the English girl, good friend of mine, Jane Couch.
Yeah.
Jane set precedent on female. She beat the British Boxing Board of Control for her licence. You know, an incredible fighter. Mm-hmm. But these women, listen, the suffragettes did what they did and suffered what they suffered for equal rights for women. Mm-hmm. Women are flying aeroplanes. Women are driving tanks. Women are electricians. A woman's place isn't just in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. That's old school. Women can do every bit as good a job in any field and given the chance to as a man. You know, yeah, there's different strengths there, you know, so they're not going to be the powerlifting champions like the men, but they can still lift powerful weights. Mm. They're not going to be in certain sports as good as the men, but they're every right to compete. And boxing is just a sport that they've right to compete in. Mm-hmm. The suffragettes did what they did for equal rights for women. And some of these women fights. See the 2012 Olympics. The best part of the 2012 Olympics was when Nicola Adams won that gold medal and was the first female gold medalist of all time. And her smile lit up.
Yeah.
Lit up the TV screen, lit up the room, lit up the world. Mm. She was incredible, the first female gold medalist. And now you've got some of these women that fights. The Irish girl, Katie Taylor.
I bet you love her.
I know her dad, Peter, very well. I know Katie since she's a little girl. I used to train with Peter.
Oh, really?
And I remember Katie looking through the ropes as a little girl when I sparred with her dad. Her dad was a great heavyweight, hard, tough man. You know,
explains where she gets it from then, because she's bloody bulletproof, isn't she?
She's incredible. She's had a rivalry with that English girl the last 2 fights. The English girl won the first one. Katie won the second fight. There's got to be a trilogy.
I'd love that.
You know, there has to be a trilogy, you know, and some of these trilogies are great. Look at the Arturo Gatti, Mickey Ward trilogy. Yeah. You know, incredible.
I'm going to ask you now the final question that I like to ask everyone. I've asked a lot of big famous people this one, and I'm interested to know what yours is how would you like to be remembered?
As a nice guy. That's how I want to be remembered. As a nice guy.
I mean, you look quite intimidating, but you are a very nice guy, mate. So you've definitely nailed that.
That's what I want to be remembered by. People to say, Joe Egan, what a nice guy.
Yeah. Well, you've been incredibly respectful through everything you've said, including talking about John Fury, despite wanting to make that fight happen. I really hope it happens for you, mate, after everything you've been through. It'd be lovely to see you and Big John put on a show for the fans. And I know John said a lot of things in the past. Now he's got his opponent. He's got Misfits ready to make him an offer, and the crowd would love to see it. So I hope it happens for you, mate.
I hope Mams and KSI and Misfits makes it happen. You know, I'm sure with your help, Brian, it can happen. And we'll do a good job on the night.
Oh, mate, you know, I'm looking forward to it.
We'll do a good job on the night.
Yeah.
But when it's over, me and John will embrace, we'll shake hands, and the best man will win on the night. I'm hoping it's me. You know, I'm sure John, he will be hoping it's him.
We'll see, yeah.
We'll see. But like you said earlier on, the question, I just want to be remembered as a nice guy. I won't slander or slate anybody.
Well, that was a very emotional and interesting conversation, mate. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. It was lovely meeting you the other night. I think when I met you, said, we'll do a podcast. You didn't think I would call you up so quickly.
No, you're a man of your word.
I did tell you.
And you know something? If a person hasn't got the word, it's sad, really.
Well, we had a chat and you said, I'll get you in. I went, don't worry. I said, I'm not a bullshitter.
No.
I'll see you.
You stood.
And I'm a man of my word.
You're a man of your word. And that's an admirable thing to have.
Nice one, mate.
To have your word. Well, thank you for this.
No, my pleasure, mate. We'll wrap it up there. That was Big Joe Egan on the True Geordie podcast. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.